You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanjuatco-Trillo. Our guest, OCTA Research Fellow, Professor Guido David. Professor, thank you for being here. Let's get right to it. The Health Department says that the country has yet to detect the new COVID-19 subvariant called XBB, and these cases are linked or found in Singapore. Tell us what you know so far, and is this variant more deadly or more transmissible?
Yes. Hi, good morning, Ria. And there is some concern about these new subvariants. They're still Omicron, and there are several of them. One is the XBB that you mentioned. There's also the BQ, and I can't really remember the others. I think there's a BN or a BR, and there's also the BA 2.75.2, which is an offshoot from the Centaurus. So there's not a lot of information yet, as usual, because it's still early, but we are seeing that the numbers of these cases worldwide, the numbers are increasing, and there's some concern because these are possibly highly immune evasive, so they're very infectious, and then they can escape antibodies or evade antibodies, and they can evade immunity, especially prior infection. So those who have gotten infected before, they're not entirely safe from being infected again, and even vaccination. Well, the old vaccines will offer not as high as a protection against these subvariants. And then there's also a difference in presentation. So this is something that's new. We're still looking at the data. Previously, if we're talking about, Delta variants, subvariants, the presentation would be mostly fever, cough, etc., the usual ones. But these ones, they're reporting now that there's an increased number of vomiting and diarrhea with infected people.
Oh dear. Okay. Now, given everything that you've told us, can these new variants trigger a new wave of COVID-19 infection? I mean, it certainly sounds like it. You're saying they can evade the protection given by vaccines and they're more transmissible.
Ria, we're looking at data from countries like Austria, France, and Germany. And they're not just triggering a wave of infections, they're triggering a wave of, an increasing number of hospitalizations. In fact, preliminary data in Austria shows that the rate of increase of hospitalizations is actually faster than what happened during the Delta wave. So there's some concern. I mean, there's been some complacency because over the past year, we didn't see an increase or a high number of hospitalizations. So it was relatively safe, even though we had an increased number of infections in January, and then in the most recent wave, hospitalizations remained low, and that has helped us to remain or to keep our economy open. And but of course, there would be some concern if the hospitalizations increase again, especially now that we're at the time when we're sort of lacking in healthcare workers, our frontliners. A lot of them have actually, gone abroad because of the opportunities there.
Right. From going back to what you said about what you're observing in Austria and having their hospitalizations increase, do we know if those hospitalizations are severe or critical cases?
Well, there's usually a certain percentage of severe cases, and we don't have that data. But even if it's a normal rate of severity, the fact that the hospitalizations are increasing faster than the prior Omicron surges in Austria, I mean, because we understand that they're relatively highly vaccinated population, but if the hospitalizations are increasing, we don't think that most of them will be mild cases. I mean, there will be some severe, of course, but the fact that it's increasing at a high rate is something to be concerned about.
Okay, now here back home, on October 13th, the DOH reported 2,883 new cases. Nationwide, there's a 14.9% positivity rate. That's still pretty high, right? I think if I remember right, the WHO wants it ideally to be at about 5% or lower. Tell us where we're at. Are we increasing the number of cases? Are we declining? Where are we in the grander scheme of things?
Right, Ria. It depends on where we're looking at. If we're looking at the NCR, cases are actually decreasing already. And same thing with some nearby provinces like Bulacan and Pampanga. We're seeing a decrease in cases, but we're also seeing a rise in positivity rate in some provinces like Camarines Sur, in Tarlac, in Zambales, and then in some other provinces like Iloilo, in South Cotabato. So it's not consistent. There's it's finally declining in Metro Manila, but it's increasing in other parts of the country. So we might expect that this will be the case over the next few months. I mean, even without the new subvariants coming in, we'll expect that there will be more like a roller coaster, up and down, or increasing and decreasing cases. This is more. I think this is more or less what we're expecting right now with the Omicron, because the Omicron is highly, it's already evasive as it is, meaning that prior infection does not really protect us that well from a subsequent reinfection with Omicron. But it may get worse if the if the news about these new subvariants that we mentioned a while ago, if it is true. But again, it's too early to tell. We're not panicking, but we're just monitoring these trends closely, the trends in other countries.
For the provinces you listed, Professor, why do you think cases are rising in these areas? Is this the expected movement from NCR to the provinces? Because we'll always see it worse first in NCR and then it goes to the provinces, right?
Yeah, something like that, Ria. Although, like we mentioned, the current wave actually started around June, and then we hit the peak in NCR by August, and then it was decreasing from then. But then it started increasing again, and back in September, and now we hit the peak first week of October. So it's roughly like a 1 month pattern in NCR. So we might see a decrease, but again, there's also increased mobility. More people going out because it's the Burr months. We're about a month and a half away from Christmas. And increased mobility, maybe decreasing or waning immunity. These are contributing factors. More people going out. And we will expect more gatherings happening within the next month. So I think I don't expect that cases will be reduced down to a few hundred cases by then. I mean, it may happen, so we hope, we can still hope, but I think it will remain in this range from between 1,000 to about 3,000 cases per day.
Now, Professor, the health department says that they may recommend the lifting of the state of public health emergency to President Bongbong Marcos if certain conditions are met, namely the plateauing of cases, improved vaccination coverage, and minimal severe and critical admissions in hospitals. For your part, do you think that we're ready to lift the state of public health emergency given everything that we've just spoken about?
Well, if it were more or less status quo, like what we're seeing now, not an increased number of hospitalizations, which we have observed over the past year. Since January, we didn't get a high number of hospitalizations, and cases roughly ranging from 1,000 to 3,000. I think they could definitely consider that. Of course, lifting the state of calamity would depend on on a panel of health experts. But my concern is that there is, again, new unknowns, or we might be entering new unknown territory, considering that there are these new subvariants that we did talk about. And if we, for example, happen to lift the state of calamity and something like this enters the country, the question is, are we prepared for that? Is there a way for us to restore some of these, for example, these health protocols if needed? I mean, because if we can do that, then it's like we could probably make some changes as long as we're ready to restore these changes once, if ever, we need them.
All right, Professor, always very informative speaking to you. Thank you so much. That was OCTA Research Fellow, Professor Guido David. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ria Tanjuatco-Trillo. You're watching CNN Philippines.